Victory Sunday. This is your post-game Cleveland Brits podcast.
Same old Browns, boys! Just the same old Browns!
Garrett's going to get him, and he knocks the ball away. Caught by Donovan Peoples-Jones! Touchdown! He got it! He got Chubb! He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown!
Wow, what a struggle! The way it should be, I guess. Brownies, here we go! Woo, woo. Here we go, Brownies!
Yeah, Sunday evening, the Cleveland Browns back in the win column. Pretty dominant performance on both sides of the ball. Joined by Owain to break it all down. Evening, mate. How you doing? You enjoy the game?
Yeah, good game to watch. Wasn't very stressful at all. So yeah, it was enjoyable.
Yeah, it makes a pleasant change, doesn't it? Like you say, it's normally fingernail biting come the end of regulation or whatever the case may be, but certainly didn't have that tonight. We said earlier in the week we may well do post games, and that's what we're going to try and kick off with tonight. We are still obviously keeping our eyes on everything that's unfolding, including the Indianapolis Colts on the edge of field goal range to hopefully beat the Baltimore Ravens, which would be a turn up for the Bucs. But let's get into our game, mate. We said we were looking for a lot of improvement from the offense in particular, and I don't think it's just me saying this, but I think it's by far Deshaun Watson's best game as a Cleveland Brown, wasn't it, mate? By an absolute mile as well.
Yeah, not even close. Obviously, towards the start of the game, there were some, a couple of worrying signs, especially with that, that play that went awfully wrong, which will do the rounds on social media, I'm sure, today. But overall, he was really good. Those deep balls, like we saw one or two to Cooper last week, but we saw a hell of a lot more this week, all accurate. And he just felt comfortable when he was taking snaps. I don't think I felt worried at all today. Whereas maybe before you would have felt a little bit concerned, but it always looked in control. I thought he was much more willing to take the checkdowns this week, which had a huge difference on the outcome of the game. It just kept the chains moving, and then obviously opened up those deeper shots when needed. So, night and day improvement from the offense. And, we sort of said before the game that rushing was going to be hard to come by and they had to win the game in the air. And it was a good chance for them to bounce back in the air. And they did exactly that. I think they acted accordingly today, which was nice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 17 targets between Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore really heavily involved in the offense today. And we mentioned him earlier in the week, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He came up big with a few plays, only the 4 targets, but certainly seemed to be a much bigger piece of the offense. They said earlier in the week, didn't they, that they wouldn't be able to replace Nick Chubb. You don't do that with one person. I think everybody was in agreement with that. And you could see that we had a bit of a committee approach with Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt. If you include all of the snaps that Moore played in the backfield, we were at about 150 yards out of the backfield, so to speak. Owain's disappointed because we both got the Ravens game on, and the Colts have just come up short on a 4th down and turned the ball back over to Baltimore, probably now on the edge of Justin Tucker range. So yeah, the Baltimore Ravens are probably going to squeeze out a win, but we'll keep our eyes on that. But yeah, back to our backfield, mate. Like I say, certainly never going to replace Chubb, but encouraging signs that there was plenty of work in there for the guys, and they all played a good part. I thought Pierre Strong was decent as well, although his numbers weren't probably as high as the others.
Yeah, I think obviously, like you said, it's just going to be a committee approach from now, and I think that's the most sensible option. We spoke on it last week that you were never going to swing a trade for Jonathan Taylor just because of the logistics involved. So the most sensible thing to do was just, have a running back by committee, and they were adequate today, and that's what you're going to be looking for going forward. Is you're not going to get Nick Chubb type play, but if you can get adequate play out the running backs, the offensive line will help a little bit, and this offense is going to be pass heavy now anyway. So something I've been calling out for a long time, pass to win. and that's what they're going to have to do now. And they did it well today, and hopefully they can do it well next week as well.
Yeah, Pierre Strong actually finished as the leading rusher with 27 yards. Probably been a long time since the Browns' leading rusher only had 27 yards in a dominant victory. But be that as it may, they found a role for Harrison Bryant as well, mate. He's good on the quarterback sneak. That's what we've discovered. Don't throw in the ball, just leave him to the quarterback sneak.
I thought it was quite interesting actually to see him do that twice today. There was a couple of people complaining about it last week, obviously rightly so after that terrible fourth down um, play last week where Watson fumbled. So I thought it was interesting that he took the first two and then Watson took the one after. And I think the third one, the one that Watson took, I don't think the defense was necessarily prepared for him to do it because he'd not done it before in the game. So I thought that was quite a cool way to get, a little bit of variety and maybe catch teams off guard. So yeah, I'm all for it. They haven't got a fullback anyway, so that role normally is left for a tight end in those situations, and why not?
Absolutely. Baltimore Ravens 4th and 3 from the 47-yard line. They're keeping Jackson on the field.
It's delay of game.
Delay of game. Oh, they've got the timeout in just in time. So we've got another 30 seconds about before they decide what they're going to do. Justin Tucker came up short on a 61-yarder to win it for them a few moments ago. Final thing on the offense, mate, because I think, again, we want to give an awful lot of love to the defense. Like you say, outside of the one play, and look, let's not be hypocritical. We said the defense had one bad play on Monday night and we glossed over it. Shaun had that really bad play, the backwards throw, and who knows what was going through his mind. But again, let's not be hypocritical. We'll put that one to one side. I thought Amari Cooper again today. You can see he's going to be Deshaun's favourite target. Obviously, really deserved that touchdown at the end. But like you say, I just thought it was really encouraging to see the deep balls a lot more accurate today. It was a little bit of a busted coverage on the one that obviously Cooper goes in for the touchdown, but he certainly took advantage of it. So again, another excellent game. The Ravens missed the fourth down, and there is no yellow on the field.
I thought that was going to be DPI. Then he was draped all over Flowers. I'm surprised that they haven't thrown the flag there, but take it.
Absolutely, yeah. John Harbaugh doesn't look best impressed. I don't know, mate. Now I've seen the replay. I don't know. That ball's quite in front. Anyway, back to our offense. We'll have to start doing these pods at 9:30 when the early windows finish. But yeah, like I say, the long game certainly a lot more accurate today.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, we saw glimpses of it last week in spurts, but it was much more consistent today. He seemed like he was willing to hang in the pocket much more today as well when he needed to. Not so much of that, scramble and get away, especially in the second half. So that was really nice to see. And I think what you said about Cooper, spot on. He was sensational today. He deserved that long touchdown at the end because, he'd had one wrongfully chalked off by the terrible officiating. He'd had 3 or 4 pass interference or holding calls where he would have been wide open as well. So, I'd love to see him actually get extended this year. I think he's a very much a Nick Chubb type person in terms of the way he carries himself, the way he goes about his business, and he's just always consistently good. And I think you have to reward players like that. So I'd love to see him get an extension this year. If that means DPJ has to walk, unfortunately, at the end of the season, you can't pay everyone, but I'd love to see Cooper stick around long term.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, mate, let's flip it over. Defense, absolutely phenomenal yet again. We said it might be the day that Miles shows up in the stat book, and boy, did he show up in the stat book. 3.5 sacks, 3 further tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits. He had the forced fumble. He was just an absolute wrecking machine today, wasn't he?
He was incredible. And, we mentioned it the other day, didn't we, that people need to stop stat line watching. But for those who do, he's put on a show today, like you said, with the stats that you just highlighted there. He was just unbelievable. He was a massive, massive part in why that offense was so bad today. And you could see, the play's been brought up a few times, but I said soon as soon as it happened, that I'd never ever seen a defense mirroring an offense mirroring a defensive player's movement on a field. Normally, it's obviously the other way around, but that just shows how much of a game wrecker he is, that they had to send those two tight ends to the other side of the formation to block him. And then he obviously saw that and thought, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this, ran back the opposite side, and then they had to call a timeout, which, is brilliant. The swagger this defense is playing with, you can see them all celebrating together after each play. It's just really, really fun to watch. Whether they can keep this up over the whole season, it's never going to be quite this good, I don't think. But this defense has potential to be special. I really do think that. There's no holes really anywhere if they can stay healthy. So it's just really exciting watching this defense, and it takes so much pressure off the offense as well. If they started leaking points early in that first half, that puts a hell of a lot of pressure on Watson to get right just to win the game. But in the end, he knows he can just get right in the environment of, not having so much pressure, because if he did, in all honesty, if he didn't play that well today, they still win the game. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, they're struggling again on offense today. The Baltimore Ravens, they haven't looked impressive. They've been really hit and miss all season so far. Even if they do scrape out of here with a victory, which is looking less and less likely now, it looks like the Colts have got the chance to win it, if anything.
looks like a draw or a close win from here, doesn't it?
Yeah, you would imagine that again. They're not going to give up too many points next week, so you wouldn't have thought that the offense is going to need too many. I thought the secondary again, mate, played really well. I thought Denzel Ward in particular was probably the pick of the bunch for me today in terms of what the secondary did. Let's give DeAndre Hopkins some credit. He's a very, very tough matchup, isn't he, DeAndre Hopkins? And he's going to win his fair share of contested balls and contested catches. But on the whole, again, secondary play was phenomenal, and backed up again by the linebackers, who are always the ones that sort of don't get the love, aren't they? Because they're just the gap in between, if you like. But again, just phenomenal at all three levels of the defense, wasn't it?
Yeah, crazy good. And like you said, you picked out Denzel there. He came in for a lot of criticism last season, and I'm so happy that he's bounced back in the way that he has this year. He's actually been my favourite player since the Browns drafted him. I know a lot of people would be Chubb, and rightly so, but I've loved Denzel Ward ever since he came in. He was obviously so impactful at the start of his rookie season and beyond that for the Browns. So I'm really happy he's turned the corner as the kick is up. Kick is good. Ravens lose. That's good news for the Browns.
That's an unbelievable result.
That
Absolutely
is.
unbelievable result. Right down the middle as well from Matt Gay. Gardner Minshew goes into Maryland and pulls up a victory. Incredible stuff. Absolutely incredible stuff. But as we come in, as I say, the Ravens haven't been impressive. They moved to 2-1, level with the Browns. The Steelers could move to 2-1 by the end of the day. It's probably good news for Cincinnati as well, isn't it? Let's be honest. But anyway, we will look at the Ravens in more detail as we get through the course of the week. Shout out as well.
Just to finish up on the DBs, I thought it was a really interesting matchup for Martin Emerson today. We sort of highlighted that when we were doing our predictions, our preview on Friday, that he's tended to match up well with bigger receivers. And I think that was quite a good matchup to watch this week, him against Treylon Burks. Obviously, both of them had their plays where they got the better of each other. But yeah, for a third-round pick from last season, Martin Emerson continues to look really good. And one thing he does bring that maybe the Browns corners especially have lacked in previous years is just the physicality, run game. He's not afraid to get his nose in there and make big tackles when running backs get out on the edge as well. So that helps obviously with the run game, and they just looked incredible. There was I don't know what he finished on. I think he did have a couple of half tidy runs towards the end, but Derrick Henry at one point in the second half was -7 yards.
Yeah, his final stat line, 11 carries for 20. He had a long run of 9. So, yeah, as you say, he was absolutely bottled up. Tannehill, 13 of 25 for 104 yards. I mean, if you look at the actual sort of stats throughout the game. Cleveland 23 first downs to Tennessee's 6. The Browns 6 of 13 on third down, not too bad. Could do with tidying that up a little bit, but not too bad. 2 of 12 for Tennessee. 341 yards to 94 in the Browns' favour. Time of possession heavily skewed to Cleveland, nearly 38.5 minutes to 21.5. Every single stat, the Browns absolutely miles ahead in terms of, the scoreboard and all the rest of it on this one. In terms of the special teams, just a shout out to them as well. Said we could do with a few things tidied up. There was one punt return that Peoples-Jones did lose some yardage on, but he had a positive one of 13 yards. But Hawk has his usual self, 2 of his punts landing nicely inside the 20-yard line. And Dustin Hopkins, there will come a point where he'll miss a few, and there will come a point when everybody starts to get a little bit nervy. But particularly the 52-yarder into the dog pound, which has been historically the difficult end of the stadium to kick. He struggled in his career from beyond 50, but to be honest, I don't know whether it's because of accuracy, because certainly from a leg perspective, that one seemed as though it cleared the uprights with plenty to spare, mate. So really encouraging signs from Hopkins as well.
Yeah, he just looks really solid, doesn't he? Like we said about Watson earlier, where, he was getting in passing situations and you weren't particularly worried about what was going to happen. It was the same with Hopkins, even from, like you said, from 52, he looked really comfortable, never looked in danger of missing. And, we'll take that. If he just carries on just being consistent from those type of ranges, that's all we really need. So, long may that continue. Like you said, he's going to miss a few now and then. And the thing is, when Cleveland kickers start to miss one, it tends to snowball and everyone gets nervous, and then that nervous energy feeds into the kicker. But as long as he's got the mental strength and he did miss one last week as well, so he's put that behind him already and not missed one since. So yeah, I'm hopeful that this is going to be a good addition this year, and it doesn't, touch wood. It feels like if a game came down to it right at the end where we need a kick from him, it feels like you would feel good about it. Although we haven't seen it yet, it does feel like you would feel comfortable with him being in that position.
Yeah, most definitely. Like you said, that's all you want from your kicker, isn't it? He will, as we said, will miss 1 or 2. But as I say, absolutely rock solid tonight, which is really what you want to see. Final thing, mate, I want to cover, because we don't often cover it and give them the credit they deserve in a win, and we've had this debate a little bit this week, I want to give a shout out to the coaching staff, to be honest. And I think Jim Schwartz smiling and laughing on the sideline, I think just sort of summed up the mood of the whole bench today. But, we probably downplayed a little bit how much the incident on Monday night with Nick Chubb would have rattled everybody. He was the heart and soul of the team. The Browns still should have won that game with some better execution, whatever you want to take away from it. Ultimately, they were by far the better team on Monday night, just ended up in the wrong side of the result. But I think this coaching staff, there's obviously pressure on this year. People are expecting big things. And I think Kevin Stefanski's called a superb game today. You could see, what it meant to him that Watson had a good game. That will quieten down some of the boo birds that have been out this week, won't it, mate?
Yeah, I think you nailed it right at the end there. You could see the visible relief on Kevin Stefanski as soon as Cooper hit that long touchdown. And I think that's what it is. It's just relief. There's been a lot of talk this week. They've reviewed the talk. As much as they want to say that, they don't listen to this type of stuff, they don't see it. It would be impossible to ignore, I would imagine, when you're out in Cleveland. Because, whenever they walk out down the street, that someone will see them and they'll have these type of discussions, I would have thought, on a daily basis. But yeah, visible relief from him. I thought Schwartz's reaction to that Myles Garrett thing sort of epitomized the attitude that he's, instilled on this defense. I think he's got a visible swagger about him. He enjoys what he does. And that's clearly rubbing off on the defense as well. which is great. Like I said, them having fun is going to make, watching this defense enjoyable for us, no matter what happens, because, they're going to make plays, they're going to fly about, they're going to celebrate stuff. And, as fans watching a product on the TV, that it's a good watch. And like you said, Stefanski, for me, came under a lot of undue criticism last week. We on this podcast, we're staunch supporters of his and the work he's done throughout his time in Cleveland. So, on a personal level, I think it was nice to see him sort of let his emotions out, because you don't see it too often. And yeah, it was cool to see that visible relief and joy when the offense started to click. Because it did. I don't think we emphasized enough how big of a game that actually felt like before this one today, because there was so much on the line, in terms of how they played. So it was nice to see the relief and the joy and, the swagger that the whole team had by the end of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. You often hear the commentators say, don't they, a pre-game meeting with the coaching staff, and it was noted several times on the broadcast, particularly, for the defensive players, they were all commenting on, Jim Schwartz, he's like playing with the handbrake off, or playing without the seatbelt, or whatever the terminology was that was used. And as you say, you can just see smiles on the faces. They're all playing hard for each other. And as you say, just long may it continue, because it really has been excellent to see through the first few weeks. Final thing, mate, we'll talk about it more when we get into the upcoming week and, like I say, start looking ahead to the Ravens. But as it's not really related to the Ravens game, and we might as well end what's been a really positive day on some more positive news. It's obviously early diagnosis, but I'm sure most people have seen by now the news on Nick Chubb seems incredibly optimistic. It could be that it's just an MCL, which we sort of said, didn't we? If it was just something, we would take that as an absolutely huge win. I think we said that more in hope than in expectation. But to get that news last night that it might only be, and again saying only, let's not downplay it, 6 to 8 months is still a huge recovery period. But that kind of time frame puts Nick Chubb potentially back in time for even training camp ahead of next season, which is just unbelievable to think, where you think how low we were on that Monday. That's a huge win today. I'm sure the Browns will dedicate it to him. I would imagine you will hear a lot of that in the post-game presses, which we obviously haven't seen anything of because we've jumped straight on here. But massively positive news, mate. And as I say, what a way on the field, to put a smile on his face today.
Incredible. I just think that's another example of him being literally a superhuman, because for that to have happened to his knee last week, everyone's seen it by now. Like, unless you're squeamish and you didn't want to see it, which I can completely understand, everyone's seen that, and the way his leg bent and the way his knee looked straight away. If he's come out of that with anything less than everything being shredded and dislocation and all of this stuff, just shows how strong Nick Chubb is, how much those ridiculous squats where the bar's bending for his life. It shows how much effort he puts in to take care of his body. And it was great news to see, because I worried that was the end of his career last week, as I would have thought a lot of Browns did. So if he has sort of got away with an MCL, like you said, you don't want to downplay it, but if that is the only thing he's done, incredible. And hopefully we see him back to his best next year, or just back on a football field would be really nice to see, wouldn't it? So yeah, long live the king.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Just quick glance around the rest of the early window. We've obviously brought you the news by the field goal for the Colts getting them the win over the Ravens. Colts moved to 2-1. Who'd have thought the Colts would be 2-1? But they moved to 2-1. Some of the early scores, I'm not going to go through them all, but there's a couple that really obviously do stand out for one reason or another. I'll probably leave the real standouts till the end. Chargers beat the Vikings. You said the best quarterback would probably win. One score game, which is no surprise whatsoever. But the Chargers squeaking that one out. The Packers also coming from behind, 17 points down, doing absolutely nothing for 3/4 of this game. But Derek Carr going out, flipped the game on its head. And all of a sudden the Packers come rolling back. Two that I want to pick up though, mate. We've been on this Jaguars train for a while. Is it time to start taking a different route? Because the Houston Texans beat them 37 points to 17. Really, really poor performance from the Jags. I'm off to Wembley to watch them next week. And I've got to say, that was a real shocker today.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Obviously, we were at the Believe in Brit, opening day party the first week, and that was sort of the game in the distance for us. So we didn't get much of a chance to see what was going on in that game, although they won. But their offense looked stagnant against the Chiefs last week, which was surprising to see. And for them not to beat Houston, and obviously I've got Red Zone on in the background, and you only see snippets of each game, but yeah, they didn't look particularly great when they came on Red Zone on offense, and it's really surprising because you look at the weapons they've got there, and it's pretty stacked. They've got a really, really good quarterback as well. So fair play to CJ Stroud getting that win there, because that's some achievement for a rookie QB to go in there and win. He's probably looked overall the best rookie QB out there so far. So fair play to him. Be nice to see the Texans having a little bit of a revival, I would say, because they've been so bad for so long, just sort of like we have. So yeah, it's always nice to see that type of thing happening. But as for the Jags train, it looks like it's hitting some bumps for sure.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. The Patriots won the battle in the AFC East. The Jets season does appear to be over before it's really begun, which is a real shame considering the optimism that was there. There's still so much talent on that roster. Though
I wonder if this forces them into a QB trade. I really do. I know they'd be reluctant to do it, but there's times there where there's players almost trading blows with coaches on the sideline. Garrett Wilson and Zach Wilson exchanging heated words for the second week in a row. The fans are booing Wilson when he comes off the field. How sustainable is that for a season? And let's not forget as well, Rodgers is planning on coming back either by some miracle by the end of the season or next season. So they don't want the atmosphere to sour completely before next season either. So I do wonder if that, forces them into making some sort of move at QB. I don't know what that move would be, something like Jacoby Brissett or something like that, I would imagine, but something just to give them a few wins and a feeling of hope.
No, absolutely, mate. Like you say, it's a real shame. One team that's not struggling to score, though, mate, is the Miami Dolphins. The most points scored by an NFL team since 1966. It's one of those scores that you have to read it twice when you're glancing through because you think surely that is a misprint. But the Miami Dolphins in their home opener have scored 70 points. 70 points they put on the Denver Broncos. The Broncos slipped to 0-3. It looks like a real long season in Mile High. But the Miami Dolphins, mate, I'll ask you one question to finish the podcast. Are they the team to beat in the AFC?
Yes, is the answer. That offense is incredible. The speed, the play design, the play caller. If Tua can stay healthy, they're definitely the team to beat. On a personal level, left Devin Achane on the bench on my fantasy team today. He's gone off for 52 points. And also I've got a nice little bet on Marvin Mims, 66-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He actually had a good game today for the Broncos. I think he went for 70-something yards on offense, scored a kick return after, putting together a good game last week. But Achane has just absolutely ruined that game, I would imagine, in one game on the offensive, on the other side of the ball. So, yeah, sucks to be me when looking at the Dolphins today.
Never mind, mate. At least I played Raheem Mostert in my fantasy matchup, so there's always a silver lining. Right, we will be back later on in the week, probably towards the back end of the week, maybe sort of Thursday, Friday time. We'll see how our weeks line up with each other, but we'll leave it till later on in the week anyway, so we've got a bit more of an idea from an injury report perspective and all those kind of good things, how the Browns are looking as they now have a real tasty matchup chance to lead the division in all likelihood, or certainly be in a tie for the lead of the division come the bye week. Which would sit them in a really nice position and exactly where they deserve to be, probably based on certainly the first 3 weeks of the campaign. Great to see the defence continuing to ball out. Deshaun Watson, certainly a big tick and a big step in the right direction. Long may that continue. Enjoy Victory Monday, everybody. We'll be back later in the week. This has been the Believe and Bricks podcast.